Welcome to the Google PwC Enterprise Trust Fireside Chat. My name is Dallas Dolen, PwC Global Client Partner and Alliance Leader for Google. I will be the host for today's discussion on emerging trust trends with respect to public cloud in financial services. I am joined by two tremendous industry thought leaders. Rani Urbas heads up the Enterprise Trust team at Google Cloud. She manages a global team of senior compliance, privacy, and trust professionals who work directly with global, highly regulated customers to ensure that they are meeting their compliance, regulatory, privacy, and other requirements with respect to Google Cloud. The Enterprise Trust team provides guidance and transparency on trust-related issues and supports Google Cloud's customers' work with regulators. Rani has more than 25 years of experience in enterprise software, during which she has lived and worked in Asia, Europe, and in the US. And Shahed Latif is a partner in our PwC cyber risk and regulatory consulting practice based in San Jose. He has co-authored a book on cloud security and has spent many years helping clients adopt cloud services across a number of industries. Shahed is also a trusted advisor to some of the largest cloud providers and has developed strategies and implemented solutions to improve their trust and resiliency. He has been based in London, focusing on financial services prior to joining the US practice, and has over 25 years of experience. Rani and Shahed will outline the trends and regulatory challenges and how PwC and Google are collaborating to assist clients addressing enterprise trust and accelerate enterprise cloud adoption. So Rani, I'll start with you first. As we're approaching the end of the year, closing the books and checking off compliance checklists, what are the biggest lessons learned from the regulated customers with respect to cloud migration, especially in the financial services industry?
Yeah. Thank you, Dallas. That's a great question. Thank you also for the introduction and the opportunity today. All right. So, as we approach the end of the second year of this pandemic, digital transformation and cloud adoption is accelerating among our customers across the board. We see this transformation in virtually all industries, and particularly in highly regulated ones like financial services and healthcare. Now, as businesses speed up their digital transformation, it's really putting pressure, primarily in very constructive ways, on our customers' security, risk, compliance, and audit functions. Now, customers expect their digital fitness to match and even exceed the readiness and best practices of the rest of the organization. Google Cloud is extremely customer focused, and we consider it a business imperative to understand, excuse me, our customers' digital journey, to empathize with them, to anticipate their needs, and to deliver innovative technologies that help them succeed. Now, in the last few years, despite the travel limitations of the pandemic, we've been able to really partner closely with some of our highly regulated customers excuse me, working hand in hand with them on their cloud journey. And we've heard many success stories from financial services institutions, healthcare, life sciences, and many of our customers in the public sector who have complex compliance and regulatory obligations on using Google Cloud technologies. Now, with a focus on specific industry and regional requirements of our customers' compliance landscape, let me highlight a few areas from this year. One, cybersecurity is at the top of every C-level and board agenda, given the increasing prominence of software supply chain exploits, data breaches, ransomware, and other attacks. Now, these are unprecedented security challenges for all organizations in every industry. And earlier this year, we at Google formed the Google Cybersecurity Action Team, which is the security cornerstone of Google's commitment to be the best partner for our enterprise and government customers. In addition, Google has dedicated $10 billion over the next 5 years to strengthen cybersecurity, which includes enhancing open source security, strengthening the digital security skills of the American workforce. Google is also partnering with the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, which is an initiative that will really unite government and private sector entities to enhance efforts to prevent and respond to malicious cyber activity across the nation's critical infrastructure. Now, with this increased focus on cybersecurity, coupled with the pandemic, that's forcing the closing of trading floors, sending scores of employees to work from remote locations. It is not surprising that financial services regulators are requiring a higher level of scrutiny into the cloud environment and supporting technology stack, including more scrutiny on threat detection, encryption protocols, and more. And as a result, we see more of our FSI customers adopting a zero trust approach network, where all access requests require verification of user identity, and device location, effectively enabling location independent secure access. Another trend, supply chain scrutiny. Here's where we see FSI regulators globally focus more on accountability for third party suppliers and subcontractors. We saw increased scrutiny on third party risk management, encapsulating everything from vendor due diligence to customer led audits of third party and secondary relationships. Another trend that we had noticed with our FSI customers was the greater partnership with third party IT vendor partner management companies, TPRMs. Now, Shahed is going to talk a little bit more about this too. These relationships provide more concrete ways to modernize and accelerate risk assessment best practices. Other emerging trends we've observed with outsourcing critical workload to cloud providers were around operational resiliency, digital sovereignty, data residency, to name a few. Now, we may need a whole other session to delve into a more thoughtful discussion on these topics, perhaps a conversation for another day. Now, privacy risk and compliance landscape is fluid, changing rapidly, and Google Cloud has demonstrated successfully commitment to enterprise customers these last few years and continues to invest and innovate to better support our enterprise customers as they navigate their digital transformation. Back to you, Dallas.
Ronnie, thanks so much. And you covered a lot of ground there, no doubt. Maybe Shahed, I can turn it to you. What are some of the common trust themes you're hearing from clients, throughout and as we come to the close on 2021?
Yeah, thanks, Dallas. And Rani, I can completely agree with a lot of what you said, and I'll probably go over some of those in a little bit more detail as well throughout this call. I think the key highlight that Rani mentioned was banking is going digital in a big way as well. The pandemic has really had an impact on all of us in our lives, and it's no surprise that it has a big impact in some of the regulated industries. And I want to highlight by talking about the role of cash in society today. It was somewhat in flux in 2020, and contactless payments, whilst were very used in Asia and Europe, it wasn't used very much in the US. But since the pandemic, contactless payments has grown quite substantially. In fact, there are statistics that show that globally, contactless payment markets is expected to grow from 10.3 billion in 2020 to 18 billion in 2025. This trend of contactless payments is not just dealing with contactless payments, but it's extending to banking and has fueled the use of mobile apps. And those mobile apps are then forcing companies to think about, well, how digitized am I to really address the needs of the market? This background or this set of situation is really creating a number of themes I see in 2021. And the first topic I want to talk about was SecDevOps. Rani mentioned that cybersecurity is front of mind of most boards and regulators, but an underlying theme that's really need to be addressed is SecDevOps. This is really referring to the part of an organization that's really in the development teams. How do development teams develop secure code? How to develop secure products? They need to do this by integrating with cyber teams and privacy teams. They need to be all in hand. And right now, that is still a growing area, and it's exaggerated by a lack of skilled resources in the market that's only growing bigger and bigger as time progresses. The other key point about SecDevOps is having design principles laid out at the beginning. Security by design and privacy by design are principles that need to be adopted right at the start and throughout the life cycle of product development. Rani mentioned zero trust. I completely agree that organizations are moving to this zero trust approach, helping manage threats to access requests. How do you make sure that the person that you're engaging with is who they are? And those three attributes, user identity, and device location, need to be triangulated. In fact, I'm working with a large financial institution right now in developing a verification platform that they intend to use not just to verifying the users, but embed it in their future products as well. And it's, as everyone's working from home and I'm not sure when we'll be back. I know there are some companies coming back slowly, but this the panic still seems to be continuing. Our workforce is remote. Exchanges have shut down their trading floors and moved to remote trading. Mobile banking as transactions have spiked. Personal trading apps have saw record transaction volumes, and call center personnel, they used to be in a call center, now working from their living rooms. This has pushed the boundary of the technology environment. It's much more expansive, and as a result, increases new attack surfaces as well. Endpoint protection and security detection mechanisms are really critical. The recent vulnerability created by Log4j is just an example of what can go wrong if you don't know where all your assets are. So detection and response activities or practices are really essential for this to be effective against these types of attacks. The modernization of third-party risk management and contract management, I just touched on that. Previously, dealing with third-party risk has been a big challenge for most financial institutions, mainly because there's not a single source of data to go to. You have to go about manually or coordinating with third parties to get their data. It's not always from the same place. There have been a number of companies, Know Your Third Parties, CyberGRX, and TrueSight, that are up and coming, that provide online platforms that collect this data and third-party information in a real-time manner and improve third-party coordination by streamlining outreach and due diligence remediation. Some of these techniques will help in the long run help deal with supply chain risk, which, given the pandemic situation, given the vulnerabilities will increase, is ever more important. And the final topic I'll mention is the globalization around regulations. Almost every country is updated its regulations in the recent times, especially following the pandemic. And keeping up to date with that is a challenge. We, PwC, have developed a repository of all these regulations across the world and can have them at our fingertips, which I think is really important in today's world. Dallas, I'll send it back to you, but those are some of the trends that I see.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Shahed. So maybe, Rani, I can turn to you to look forward at 2022. What are some of the trends that you're seeing in the industry that are going to impact customers in 22? And then maybe as you round that commentary out, how can Google and PwC work together globally to help regulated customers?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question, Dallas. So I'll focus on the emerging trends first, and we're seeing many emerging trends. In the interest of time, I'm just going to highlight a few. You know, I have to say that I was hoping by this time, December 2021, we can all say that we can see the light at the end of the tunnel for this pandemic. But alas, here we are, and I feel like we're back in the thick of it. I think we've learned a lot about facing adversity, responding to the unpredictable. The pandemic has dramatically altered the ways we interact and transact, forcing many companies into digital only interactions with customers. Now, Gartner has coined a term, hyper automation. This hyper automation is much more than a technology trend, it is irrevocably changing every business interaction, operational model, and IT process, including very complex multifunctional processes, which really is opening up opportunities for cross platform services in the financial field. Now, to enable it involves the orchestrated use of multiple technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning, as Shahed had mentioned, event driven software architecture, integration platform as a service, and much more. So we've gone from digital transformation to really this hyper automation with a lot of enterprise customers, even in regulated industries, adopting very different ways of working, and will continue to in the new year. Now, that leads me actually also to my second emerging trend, cybersecurity resilience. Cybersecurity, as we had mentioned before, will be front and center as we move into this accelerated digitization. Now, with the growing threat of ransomware, cybersecurity resilience and risk mitigation business imperatives. There was a recent Gartner research which predicts that by 2025, 60% of organizations will use cybersecurity risk as a primary determinant when choosing who to conduct business with. The third trend is ESG, environmental, social, and corporate governance. Businesses are being asked to evaluate and report on their firm's collective conscientiousness for social and environmental factors. The European Commission has published a proposal for a corporate sustainability reporting directive. Now, this will fundamentally move EU one step closer to realizing its aim of having sustainability reporting come closer to being on par with financial reporting. The reporting requirements will apply to all large EU companies and all listed companies, and I believe it also includes small and medium sized companies. Now, this is estimated to cover around 50,000 companies. If the proposal is adopted, the larger in scope companies must comply from financial years starting on or after the 1st of January 2023, publishing reports in 2024. Now, this reporting requirement for the first time, a general EU-wide audit. There's also a general EU-wide audit and assurance requirement for sustainability information. So clearly, sustainability is important to our customers. It's very important to Google. So since 2017, Google has matched 100% of our global annual electricity use with purchases of renewable energy. And last year, we set out to run our business on carbon free energy everywhere and at all times by 2030, enabling us to offer cloud customers one of the cleanest clouds in the industry. We're investing heavily in this area. We're committed to helping our customers track and report on their ESG. Now, PwC and Google are already very close partners on so many of the items that I've mentioned today, and it's a good fit. Both companies have a long and trusted history of working together and helping our customers with PwC's industry and business acumen and Google Cloud's innovative technology solutions. In fact, our teams are currently working together in Europe on mapping regulatory requirements for financial services customers, even as we're speaking on this call. Dallas, with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ronnie. And the projects that are ongoing between our teams, globally are fantastic, especially in the space. And it's remarkable how much, the regulators are driving, accelerated need for further collaboration. Maybe, Shahed, I can turn it to you and ask you to, respond and reflect on Ronnie's commentary as it relates to, what we expect to see from customers in 2022, and also the collaboration objectives that we would have with PwC and Google for 22 as well.
Yeah, thanks, Dallas. Let me talk a little bit about the trends. I'm very excited. I wrote a book back in 2009 around clouds, and in my wildest dreams, I never thought that book would sell a lot, but it sold very quickly. But I'm a big proponent of cloud, and the adoption of cloud is even increasing even more. It's growing at 50% a year currently, and it's continuing to grow. And even saying that today, there are institutions that are not even adopting cloud today. They're thinking twice about it. I think it's vital to really think twice about this, because I think the cloud offers things that on-premise solutions don't have today. But one of the most important trends that I see, and I touched on it earlier, was DevSecOps. It has to go through a period of automation. I think, Rani, you touched on that as well. But it's also got to go through a change in operating models. How does the CISO office, the CTO office work side by side? How do they work collaboratively? Examples of things that I think that will happen, start to even broaden out more, is borderless security controls, container-based architecture, transitioning from monolithic architecture to microservices, infrastructure as a code, automated GRC capabilities, and AI ops models for operational excellence. A trend that I think will always be continued here is the cybersecurity threats. The banking industry was disproportionately affected in 2021. In fact, in the first half of 2021, they experienced a 1,318% year-on-year increase in ransomware attacks. And these are really hard to protect for. It requires education, but also real-time monitoring detection to be in place. The financial service industry is also going to be shaped by AI and blockchain. We're seeing increased investments in software-defined perimeter approaches. And I just want to touch on one technology wave that I think will have an impact, and that's 5G and edge computing. these companies, predominantly obviously developed by the telecoms, are coupling themselves with technology companies. And it's interesting the two are coming together and offering better connectivity, especially where you need highly dense devices to come together. And I think it will have an impact both to the supply chain and to IoT devices, in particular in the short term. But in the long term, it's going to bring an ecosystem that's ever more connected today. And I feel like it will impact almost all the industries. Asia is already adopting it, and as is Europe. Americas is catching up, and I think 2022 will see some breakout occurrences on 5G. Let's talk a little bit now about the collaboration part. And I just want to touch about ESG before I do that, though, before I forget. We at PwC believe strongly in ESG and concur with all your thoughts, Rani, on ESG. In fact, our firm has restructured ourselves to really address the market in such a way that we have dedication in this space. And we've issued our own report in this space as well, one of the first companies to do that. But turning to Google and PwC collaboration, I just want to touch on three things. One, client experiences. Two, what are we doing within PwC to help our clients in this space? And finally, how we're working with Google side by side. I thought I'd start with client experiences, just because it highlights how PwC and Google come together in the market. And I thought the best way to describe that is looking at two engagements that we did together. The first client, a fintech client, had some issues and concerns around threats. They weren't quite sure if they had identified all their threats. They weren't quite sure if they had the right resiliency strategy in place. Their entire production platform was on GCP, so they were concerned to make sure if something went wrong, could they recover quickly? Could they detect quickly? So we worked very closely side by side with Google engineers to really test this out. We looked at all the key threats, both from a technical perspective as well as an external threat perspective, and came up with our thoughts of what the major threat issues were. From that, we developed a roadmap of what things they should consider to reduce the risk from those threats that we identified. Going forward, the company embraced all our recommendations. And touch wood, I have not yet seen an outage by that company, so I feel proud that we've helped them in some fashion. The second project was another company that had another fintech client that had all its products on GCP. But before going live, they wanted to reach out to us to make sure that they addressed everything they needed to, from a compliance perspective, from a security perspective, from a resiliency perspective. So we reviewed the architecture. We used tools to assess the configurations. We looked at the operating models and how they ensure resiliency was built into all their processes. And we really took a step back. We came up with some recommendations, both required to be done before going live and post going live. And touch wood, since once they've gone live, nothing has really failed. They've really been humming along, and a very prominent fintech client in the industry. I just want to touch a little bit about PwC leadership and what are we doing in this space. There's a couple of things I'd like to highlight. One is our PwC Switzerland practice. We developed a practice that's dedicated towards looking at things like crypto technology and blockchain and distributed ledger technology, DLT. And in DLT technology, there's been new crypto transactions that need to be assured against. So we've developed an entire assurance services that leverages our methodologies, how to audit those environments and give assurity to our clients in the use of such technology. The other thing that I'd like to touch upon is the cloud audit approach. We've digitized this approach. We no longer rely just on interviewing and talking to people, but we really look deep into the bowels of the engineering world to make sure it's configured right. We define what secure resource configuration patterns are using infrastructure as a code tooling. We establish golden templates for infrastructure to establish security architectural boundaries. We use RASP, which is utilizing drift and runtime detection for automated continuous monitoring reporting. And we are right now exploring ways in how we can improve automation around evidence collection, somewhat in using RPA technologies to be able to allow that. And finally, I just want to talk about joint leadership. And Rani mentioned this also previously, but we're working very closely with Google the last several years. We've developed a number of white papers that we've published that you can get on the website that range from PCI to other industry trends around how cloud, GCP cloud can help in those areas. And most notably, we're helping the EMA Google countries deal with the new European Banking Authority, European Commission rules, and how they relate to each of the EU entities, focusing on areas like resilience testing, risk management, incident reporting, and digital operations. We're continuing developing playbooks to help migrate workloads to GCP in a secure and compliant fashion. And as I mentioned earlier, we've developed an extensive library of regulations across the world that's at our fingertips. And we're looking forward to and I think a very exciting 2022 in ways to help both Google and its customers deal with regulations and trust in a major way. With that, Dallas, I'd like to hand back to you to wrap up.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and thank you, Shahed, for that. And Ronnie, thank you for your thoughts as well. I'll close by saying, beyond the topic we talked about today, the level of investment that's being made in our relationship is tremendous, and the amount that we're looking to grow our practice is something that will have, resonation in the future, which I'm very excited about. So, thank you both very much. Appreciate your time today. I hope everyone got something out of it, and we look forward to getting together again sometime soon. Have a great day.